There's parts of this story that will always be tough for me to tell. It'll always be that way. I was young, inexperienced, scared out of my wits. What have I got into? How am I going to handle it? So I get back in my cruiser and I leave the scene. I run north on I-71 ways. I find a place where I can turn around and come back south toward LaGrange. And, I'm cooking along good, I want to get back there as fast as I can. And I remember I said a prayer, and I said, God, please give me the words that's going to soften the blow of the information I'm about to deliver to this good family.
18 Wheels in a Highway, the murder of Myra Danette Stalbosky, only on the Murder Police Podcast. Part 3.
Warning. The podcast you're about to listen to may contain graphic descriptions of violent assaults, murder, and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
I walked over the embankment, straight line, straight down to the remains. I checked for vital signs. There was no vital signs. And I can't remember which ear was which, but one of the ears had a earring missing out of it, and in the other ear looked like a match to the earring that we recovered from his truck.
It was the angel.
Yeah.
Of all things, an angel. Of all things, an angel.
So I come back up and I talked to Agent Evans, and I said, we're going to need some help. He says, and I remember him saying this, we're in it for a penny. We're in it for a pound. We got your back. We're going to take this. We're going to take and do your crime scene for you. And their evidence response unit, I think that's what they're called, they was going to do our scene. But when Agent Evans and I was standing up on the side of the road in parallel with where the body was laying over the embankment, we looked down on the ground next to the guardrail, and there was a yellow piece of wire, like the yellow rubber coating on the outside of a multi-strand piece of wire, and had a blue connector on one end. This wire looked exactly like wires that we had seized out of the truck 2 days previous during the search. In addition to that, the connector that was on the end of the wire at the ground looked like connectors that was on other wires that we had seized from the truck. We identified that as a piece of evidence, and we collected that. Arguably, this is probably one of the most important pieces of evidence, in my opinion. So I was convinced that this was Miss Stalbosky. And back during the time, this was just an absolutely massive news thing. Everybody was trying to track this girl down. The news media was tearing it up. And there had been a reporter from Wave 3 News. I know you're from Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And her name was Kelly Burkeen. She was following us down the interstate. And Miss Burkeen was back behind outside the crime scene, and she was getting ready to report on that we had found something. And I went back to her and I said, listen, I said, Miss Burkeen, I said, could you please give me 30 to 45 minutes before you report on this? I said, we have a crime scene. It's a substantial crime scene. But there is a family that's sitting in this hotel back in LaGrange that don't need to find out about this via television news report that's going to come on. And she agreed. So by that time, the world had showed up. The Henry County, Kentucky coroner, the Kentucky State Police, the FBI's evidence response unit, they were on their way. The scene was secured. I told my boss what I was doing. I said, I got to go back and talk to this family. There's parts of this story that will always be tough for me to tell. It'll always be that way. I was young, inexperienced, scared out of my wits. What have I got into? How am I going to handle it? So I get back in my cruiser and I leave the scene. I run north on I-71 ways. I find a place where I can turn around and come back south toward LaGrange. And, I'm cooking along good. I want to get back there as fast as I can. And I remember I said a prayer, I said, God, please give me the words that's going to soften the blow of the information I'm about to deliver to this good family. And I got back to LaGrange, pulled up in the parking lot of that hotel, and walked inside. Mr. and Miss Stalbosky, the grandmother, and there's other family members there that I can't recall who they were. The brother was there. And this was back during a time when hotel rooms actually had real keys. So I walked to I knew everybody there in LaGrange because I'd worked there for that long. You get to know everybody in a small town like that. And I walked up to the clerk. I said, could you please give me a key for a room that's downstairs? I knew that Miss Stalbosky or Mr. and Miss Stalbosky, their room was upstairs. So I didn't want to take one. So I said, give me a key to a room. She did. So I took I said, can you guys come back here and talk to me? I need to talk to you in private for a minute. So we took them into this, I took them into this room. There was 2 beds in the room, 2 full-size beds, and I sat on one, and they sat on the other. And I took a deep breath, and I reached out, and I took Miss Stalbosky by the hand. I said, I have some information to pass along to you, and I it's going to be difficult for me to tell you this, but we have found the remains of a young lady that I believe to be your daughter. Unimaginable, total meltdown. It was just horrible. Just both the mother and the father. It was the most horrible piece of news that they had probably ever received in their entire lives. And I delivered it to them. I told them that we had located what I believe was their remains. The clothing description matched. Told them about the earring and this and that. And they begged me to take them to the scene. I said, I can't do that. I said, we can't take you to the scene. And I explained to them why. And Mr. Stalbosky was more understanding than the mother was, of course, because of what he did. He was the chief of police. And I called somebody from the Oldham County Police. They had a pastor that worked with them, and they sent a pastor out there. And then we got a LaGrange Police Duty Unit to come up and sit with them. I said, our work's just starting. I'm going to have to go, but I will be back in touch with you. So by that time, the scene was being processed. The body was being collected. The body was going to go to the state medical examiner's office in Louisville, 810 Barrett Avenue. Tracy Handy.
Right.
Tracy Handy was the medical examiner at the time. I knew that at some point in time that somebody would have to take the family to make the identification. I would do that later on. But before that, we knew then that we had, at that stage of our investigation, we had strong probable cause.
Right.
We had very strong probable cause. And we got in touch with the Commonwealth's attorneys and me and my boss and the FBI. And by that time, the state police post commander and anybody that's who's who in, leadership in law enforcement was there. And we all went to the Commonwealth attorney's office. And because I had done the most on the case, I come in and give a brief. This is why that I believe that William Christopher Ballou is responsible for this murder. This is the evidence that we have. And I think that we should get a warrant for him immediately. Let's draft up an arrest warrant. So back and forth, we got the arrest warrant drafted up. But in the meantime, the FBI was tracking our suspect down then because they wanted to ask more questions of him. And we found out that at the same time we found the body and located the body, the remains of Miss Stalbosky, is that the FBI, an FBI agent by the name of Phil Luzader, had Ballou in his office in Paducah, Kentucky, re-interviewing him at the time we found the body.
How'd he find him?
I don't know. That's a piece of the story that I don't know, but he was able to locate him. And so we got in touch with the FBI there, got in touch with Agent Luzader and said, hey, hold on to this guy because we have an arrest warrant that's coming for him. We'll have to fax it to you. So my chief and I, after this search warrant was drafted, we all agreed on the facts and contained within the probable cause affidavit. We had to go to a judge's house in the middle of the night. Lived out in Goshen, Kentucky, and the judge looked at the warrant and he read it. He agreed that there's probable cause. He signed the warrant. We got it faxed, and William Christopher Blue was lodged in the McCracken County Jail out in Paducah, Kentucky, on Sunday, April the 30th, 1995.
And a small detail on that, if he was in that agent's office, again, he was in there voluntarily, right? I mean, they didn't just go pick him up and say, you're going to, that again, he's volunteering to come and make statements again.
I have to ask, when you found Myra, when you walked upon her, was there trauma on her? Was it visible what had happened?
No, it wasn't.
No.
There was some blood. Her hair was, it was strewn about. She was laying in a very unnatural position because I believe that she had been ejected from the side of that truck down that hill, and after she was murdered and dumped off, she was laying in a very unnatural position. But I was able to see both ears.
But you couldn't tell it was no gunshot, you couldn't see any kind of that kind of thing.
The only time I touched that body was for one thing. I looked for a pulse in the carotid artery, and there was no vital signs.
And again, it's not like on TV and movies where the detective doesn't start rolling the body over, and that is so fetched. No. That body belongs to the coroner.
That's right.
And that immediacy of that belongs to the coroner. So it's not like on TV where they start hopefully they start rooting things.
So on Monday morning, May the 1st, 1995, the chief, my boss, and I left from LaGrange early in the morning, and we drove down there and we picked him up and brought him back and put him in the Oldham County Jail. They set his bond at $500,000, and at the time, it's a lot of money. It still is today, but set his bond at $500,000, and there's where he remained. So,
did he talk to you all? That's a long ride. That's a few hours.
I Mirandized him again. I read him the warrant. I Mirandized him, and he refused to say anything after he was taken.
Did you just button up, or did you say, "I'm not talking to you"?
He just buttoned up.
Didn't even speak the whole way.
No, never said a word.
He'd wised up.
Huh?
He'd wised up.
Yep.
He had done enough damage, but
because he had allowed too much as it was.
Yeah, because even after Miranda, if they do a spontaneous utterance in the back of that car,
absolutely,
then it's good.
Unsolicited spontaneous utterance.
Exactly, unsolicited. You're right.
Yeah.
What is that? I can't remember and the lawyers listening will find it, but I think they called it the graveyard speech, where those detectives from many years ago, there's a case law based on how they were talking about somebody being buried somewhere.
Right.
And they were so off the case that the guy started talking, and I think they held that, no, they didn't really solicit a statement. So
I had another case from Louisville where it's kind of like that.
So you get him back. He's buttoned up. He's finally smartened up. I guess they thought he was smart that whole time.
Yeah, he buttoned up. He's coming back to, we got him charged with, in Kentucky and the rules of criminal procedure, if you're in custody, you got 10 days, you get entitled to a probable cause here within 10 days time of your arrest. If you're out of custody, it's 20 days, and that still stands today.
Oh, yeah, the preliminary hearing.
Preliminary hearing, yeah. So by virtue of the fact that the remains were found in Henry County, Kentucky, the probable cause hearing was going to be done in the Henry County District Court. And the judge in Henry County District Court was the same as one of the judges that we had in Oldham County, the same 12th Judicial District. And we had a female judge, Julia Fields. I'll never forget it. She was the judge. So there was three of us that put on evidence at the probable cause hearing: Detective Bosmer, myself, and an FBI agent. Put on evidence of what he found at the scene, what they processed, and what it all meant, and everything. James Ensko was the FBI agent that gave the testimony. Me and him and Bosmer and the district court judge said, you guys have put on a strong probable cause case and bound it over to a grand jury.
Can I ask real quick, during the hearing, did you get cross-examined very much?
Oh, absolutely.
They went
at
for
that point in time, Christopher Blue was being represented by the Department of Public Advocacy, the public defenders, and they asked a lot of questions of all of us,
Yeah, sure.
But still at the end, probable cause won out at the end of the day, and they bound it over to a grand jury. A few days later, I went to a grand jury again in Henry County, Kentucky, because that's where the remains were found. Presented a factual account of the investigation leading up to his arrest, and they returned a criminal indictment against him for intentional homicide and forcible rape.
Can you remember where the rape thing got based? Because we've talked about, we know we had a kidnapping, we have a death and everything. Without getting too graphic, right. Where did your stuff come from to bring the rape charge in?
From the state medical examiner's office. They gave us information prior to the postmortem being, produced, because it takes a while to get a postmortem.
Sure.
But she gave me, Tracy gave me information that there was substantial evidence that a rape had occurred.
What did they find her cause of death was?
Broken neck, disarticulation, and I can't remember which cervical vertebrae it was, but she had a complete disarticulation.
That's not very common.
No, it's not.
Not very few broke. I think I only maybe saw one that I remember in my career.
Did he ever tell what happened? Did that story ever come out?
There was a story that came out. There was. And I'll tell about that in a few minutes. He was at some point in time, he did give an account of what he thought had happened. But we went on through, he was indicted. The suspect's family was able to acquire the money to hire let me back up. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So in this meeting in the Commonwealth's attorney's office, where we briefed this warrant and everything to the Commonwealth, we got this warrant. They were trying, you had KSP, FBI, and us, and the LaGrange Police Department. They decided who's going to take the lead on this. So my boss, a lieutenant from KSP, was in there. Dave Cole from FBI, two Commonwealth's attorneys, and I don't know if Bosman was in there or not, but they asked me to step out of this conference room, and they wanted to talk about this case without me in there. They wanted to figure out who's going to take the case. So I stepped out. 15 minutes later, they called me back in. They said, you're taking lead on this. Well, my heart sunk. I was scared to death. I was like, well, at this point, I'll just be a good witness and explain, but they said, you're going to take lead on that. Taking lead on that meant, and we talked about this once before, this was not a one-man show. There were many, many parts of this investigation had to be followed up on and done. Basically, that just meant that I was taking all the pieces of information and put it together in one big comprehensive package that would be used to try Chris Blue. But anyway, I was named the lead investigator on this investigation. I was scared to death. I was horrified because I had never been exposed to anything like this. And I was like, God, I can, I'll mess this up somehow or another. But I had a lot of help. I had help from KSP. I had help from the FBI. And I can't mention this guy enough, Bill Bosmer, this detective from Oldham County Police. Just an awesome guy with a wealth of, experience and knowledge. It really helped me a lot. We got it all put together, moved forward to the trial. But before the trial, we was able to get now this is a time when DNA wasn't really thoroughly accepted in Kentucky. Okay, we were just getting into it. We had, if you remember, I talked about the mattress and the blood in the mattress. We had the victim's DNA, and those DNA reports finally come back, and the blood in this mattress that we had recovered was that of the victim. evidence found in the victim's vaginal vault, I think the way the medical examiner described it, that DNA evidence, that seminal fluids found in there, matched the ones of the suspect. So we had that piece of it, the thing locked up pretty. The DNA evidence was strong. You wasn't going to get past it, but we went through a lot of hearings on it. The earring, hairs, and fibers, metallurgical testing was done by the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia. The earring found on the victim and the one found in the back of the truck, a metallurgist examined that, and with a high degree of probability that they were a match pair. That's important. Yes. You can't just go by visual. No. We had a very scientific examination done of that. And the piece of wire found at the scene that I spoke about on the side of the interstate next to the guardrail, that piece of wire was examined along with tools that we had collected and other pieces of wire that we had collected at the scene, and they were compared. And the tool that was used to cut that wire to pieces seen was that we recovered that from his truck. In addition to that, the piece of wire that the wire was cut from that was found on the ground that we found in his truck 2 days previous is all a match. That's incredible. It was all a match, and that was put together by the FBI and gave us that. So we had all this good evidence, but his family dismissed the Department of Public Advocacy, dismissed them, and they came up with the money to hire. At the time in Kentucky, they was the premier defense team. Bill Johnson and Guthrie True. Oh, yeah. The A team. Yeah, they were the A team. And when, I knew who they were, I just knew who they were. And when I found out that, they had dismissed the Department of Public Advocacy and we were picking up Bill Johnson and Guthrie True, I was like, well, this thing just got a little bit more intense. So there was motion after motion after motion after motion that was filed. And one of the first ones that I remember saying, well, what does that mean? They filed a motion, a preservation motion. Everything, every handwritten note, everything that I collected, everything that I'd done, they wanted copies of everything. So everything that I'd done in this thing, there was 3 copies, one for my master case file, one went to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, well, 2 went to Commonwealth Attorney's Office because they sent it to Johnson and True. For discovery? Yes, for discovery, yep. They sent everything forward. Commonwealth decided they was going to try this as a capital case, because you got your homicide and then you got the aggravating circumstance rape. So they decided to try as a capital case. And we started the trial. It's Henry County, Kentucky, where we seated a jury out of. And I'll tell you, and I know that you understand this, but seating a good jury on a case means a lot. Oh, it's a lot of work. And Mr. Johnson and Mr. True are very wise, and they're very good at what they do. We seated a very good jury for the prosecution. We had a good jury seated. And in about the 8th day of the trial.
Hey, there's more to the story, so go download the next episode like the true crime fan that you are.
The Murder Police podcast is hosted by Wendy and David Lyons and was created to honor the lives of crime victims, so their names are never forgotten. It is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lyons. The Murder Police podcast can be found on your favorite Apple or Android podcast platform, as well as at murderpolicepodcast.com, where you will find show notes, transcripts, information about our presenters, and a link to the official Murder Police Podcast merch store, where you can purchase a huge variety of Murder Police Podcast swag. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is closed caption for those that are hearing impaired. Just search for the Murder Police Podcast and you will find us. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe for more and give us 5 stars and a written review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. Make sure you set your player to automatically download new episodes so you get the new ones as soon as they drop. And please tell your friends. Lock it down, Judy.
Hey everybody, it's Wendy. In case you didn't know, David finally got off his butt and finished his book. True Crime and Consequences. The book is super educational and talks about the world of true crime and where it meets real investigations. It is perfect for everyone, from true crime fans like myself, to the true crime podcaster or YouTuber, to the amateur detective or web sleuth. And not to leave anyone out, you cops need to read this book too. True Crime and Consequences is available at murderpolicepodcast.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, well, pretty much anywhere you'd find a great book like this. So true crime fans, go get your copy today.